All right, what's good? What's good? What's good? Terence Bud Crawford is going to be the topic of this video, and his team spoke out. Shout out to Mill City Boxing, and gives one of the most lame excuses in the history of boxing for not fighting Jon Inis. Let's talk about that in this video. Lame excuse. Flat out lame excuse. No other way to say this one. Bernie the Boxer, who was a team member of Terence Bud Crawford, #1 pound for pound fighter in the world, best fighter in the world, former undisputed champion at 140 pounds, former undisputed champion at 147 pounds, current 3-belt holder at 147 pounds. One of the best fighters of this century for sure. People want to make the argument that he's one of the greatest all time. Hard for me to do because, hey man, I don't know all time. So we're going to stick to what we know and call him one of the best fighters of this century for sure. However, what he does in the ring, though spectacular, is often counterbalanced in the minds of some fans by the things that come out of his team's mouth, he and his team's mouth. And in this particular instance, it's one of the weakest excuses not to fight another champion in a division that I've heard. Before I get into the details, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, thanks for subscribing to the channel. Really appreciate you. If you're a longtime subscriber and you've been chopping it up with me about boxing for a while now, thank you very much. Really appreciate you. Welcome back to the channel. If you feel like sponsoring the video and the super thanks below, it is a great way to continue, to help the channel thrive. So thank you very much. We don't get paid by boxing promoters or fighters or anything like that to say what we say. We only just get up here, man, and tell you what we really believe about boxing. And if you agree, sometimes you agree, sometimes you don't agree. But I'm going to give you I'm going to give it to you like I see it. In this particular instant, man, I got to tell you how I see it. Listening to Mill City Boxing, my guy Mill City does a lot of interviews over at his channel, Mill City Boxing. Definitely go check him out. Has some really great interviews up recently with Gary Antoine Russell, he and some other people. Always good information over there. He interviewed Bernie the Boxer. Bernie the Boxer is a member of Terence Crawford's camp, and he was talking about Jaron Ennis. Now, obviously, a lot of people want to see Terence Crawford fight Jaron Ennis. Want to see it because Jaron Ennis is one of the best fighters in that division. I think it's safe to say the second best fighter in that division. Maybe the best fighter in that division, including Terence Crawford. You won't know unless they fight each other. But Bernie the Boxer gave a reason why Terence Crawford won't fight him, or why Jaron Ennis, how did he say it? Shot himself in the foot, which, prevented the fight from taking place, which is that he became a champion. Yeah. Bernie the Boxer said Jaron Ennis shot himself in the foot by becoming the champion in the IBF. Said Terence Crawford, he would have still been the #1 guy if he wouldn't have taken the belt. But since he took the belt and he's a champion, that is going to make it harder to make the fight with Terence Crawford. Enlighten me. Does anybody see the logic in that at all? Even a little bit? He was gonna fight him if Terence Crawford was still undisputed and Jaron Ennis didn't take that IBF belt. Then Terence Crawford would have been more likely to fight him. Why? He's not a champion. He's not a champion. All he is the mandatory. Why would not being the champion make it more likely that he would fight? That's just ridiculous. Flat out ridiculous. Look, if you're not going to fight the guy, just say you're not going to fight him. Now, in the same breath, I have to say this. I don't believe that Terence Crawford is scared of Jaron Ennis. And when Bernie the Boxer says that Jaron Ennis doesn't like pressure and Terence Crawford is going to apply pressure to him and hurt him, I mean, I've never seen Jaron Ennis have any problems with pressure, but hey, man, that's one of the best boxing gyms and one of the best teams that there is in boxing. So maybe they see the possibility that they see something that I don't see is very, very high. But no, man, that's quite lame. It's the only way you can describe it. I think if you apply that to anybody else, you come up with the same conversation. You come up with the same conclusion. Lame. You're not going to fight somebody because they're a champion? What kind of logic is that? You would fight him if he wasn't a champion, but you won't fight him if he is a champion? It's worse for him to be a champion than it is for him not to be a champion? What sense does that make? Really? None. If Terence Crawford is going to hold those belts, Terence Crawford needs to fight Jaron Ennis, period. He also needs to fight the guys that are mandatories or the top guys in the division in the sanctioning bodies that he has the belt in. And that's the same standard that everybody should have, period. And to just, I don't get it, man. It seems to me that, people complain about people when they sit on the throne and how they act when they're sitting on the throne, when they are contenders to the throne. But when they get on the throne, they act just like the person that they dethroned, right? Or the person that they thought, wasn't fighting them. So take, for example, this claim that I've always thought was ridiculous, that Errol Spence was avoiding Terence Crawford for 5 years by fighting other champions. Maybe that's the logic that Bernie's using and Terence Crawford, at least Bernie is using, that, since he's a champion, it's much harder to fight a guy that's the champion. You shouldn't fight the other. If you're a champion, the other guy's a champion, that's a bad thing. Maybe that's what they thought Errol was doing, even though Errol was definitely fighting other champions. But now that Terence is the unified champion in the division, the guy that is the solo champion and only has one belt, they can't fight him. It's honestly, it's mind-boggling, man. It's mind-boggling. The truth of the matter is, though, Terence Crawford is going to have to SHIT or get off the pot at 147 pounds when it's time. I'm not saying it is time now. He fought in July. 9 months ago or something like that? Right? July is the 7th month. So 7 months, maybe 7 months ago that he fought. So, he still has some time before he decides what he's going to do in his next fight or whatever. So, even though we talk boxing every day, there's no super rush on him to decide what he's going to do. I don't care what Mauricio Suleiman says or anybody else says. I still think those guys are going to wind up making that Errol Spence Jr. fight. That because, I don't see where Terence Crawford is going to go. I mean, if he fights anybody at 147 other than Jaron Ennis, that's going to be labeled a duck for sure. He may not care that it is, but it's going to be. At the guys at 154 pounds, say this till I'm purple in the face. None of those guys are going to be anxious none of their promoters or their teams are going to be anxious to feed those fighters to Terence Crawford without a rematch clause and even with one. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. I think that was one of the weaker excuses that I heard for not fighting Jaron Ennis. And you guys can call it Terence Crawford animosity, hate, whatever. That's some nonsense. It's some nonsense. So please don't come in my comment sections trying to defend it and act like there's something wrong with me for pointing that out, because it was just flat out ridiculous. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Deuces.